Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Honza Valustik with us. Honza, thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, hello. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. I know I just butchered your last name, and that's partly because you're from the Czech Republic.
Yeah,
And so let me tell people about you a little bit. You're actually a student at Thomas Beta University in Zlin in the Czech Republic. And,
yeah,
it's unusual for me to have a student on the show, but there's actually a really good reason why you're on the show. And it's because you are a marketing student and you had a marketing bachelor thesis that was coming up, and you did something that was really innovative. And I actually saw it a couple months ago online, and as soon as I saw it, I loved it. So tell us, what is it you did for your thesis that was so unique?
thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about my bachelor thesis, and I'm into startups and marketing and new media and this stuff. And I wanted to create something remarkable, bachelor thesis. So I decided to uh, create a bachelor thesis about marketing, about startups marketing in the US market. So it's quite interesting topic for me because I'm from Czech Republic, how you said. So I was thinking about that and I decided, yeah, it's right thing for me. But it was quite challenging for me because I need to approach at least 300 startups in the US market. It's quite hardworking. I have to be really hardworking about it.
So
And
you had to approach 300, is that what you said?
yeah.
Wow, okay, so that's quite a few. So you decided you wanted to learn about marketing in the US and how startups are doing it. And for
Yes,
your thesis, you had to approach 300 different startups. All right, so
yes.
so what'd you do with that?
Yeah, and solution was quite easy. I wanted to go to the US and talk with startups personal, but it wasn't possible. So I decided to create a microsite, I would say, and creative campaign. I wanted to say my story. Hey guys from startups, I'm Honza. I need you because I'm working on my bachelor thesis. So please help me to finish my studies. So okay, I hope that it will work because I know that people from US are great and it's great, and people from startups are great. So I believe that it would work and yeah, it worked.
Yeah, so you put up a microsite, basically stroking their ego, telling them, hey, we know startups are great, we know the Americans are great, you guys are
Yeah.
totally going to help us. And so you put up this microsite, and it kind of told them about your thesis and the information you were needing from them. How did people find this website? We'll talk about the response to it in a second, but did it get posted somewhere popular, or did it just word of mouth? Did it spread around? How did people find out about it?
Hmm. I wanted to do it really viral, you know, shareable and so on. So I created a nice story, I would say, and it became viral and it spread the internet. And of course, I approached some startups via email
Hmm.
with this microsite, and I succeed because they told me very often it's really unique approach, so it's great. Okay, I will give you data. It work really nice this approach. So
Yeah,
that's the whole point of my campaign to do something different, something
totally.
interesting for people.
So
So,
you,
and my story, because I'm from the Czech Republic, it would be interesting for you guys in the US.
no, totally, it is interesting. And
Uh,
so you decided to try to learn how American startups are marketing, but in the process, you created a microsite that went viral. So you actually show yourself to be quite the marketer, even though you're trying to learn these things. It definitely shows you know what you're doing at
right.
the same time. So you needed 300 people to respond. How many people ended up responding to your website?
Yeah, it's almost 300.
Yeah, so you got the number you needed basically.
Yeah, I used 300 because it's more motivated for people. So
Hmm.
it's high. But I reached about 256 respondents, so it's
Yeah.
okay for me. And
And each of those respondents, did they have to fill out a survey? Is that how it worked in order to help you?
yeah.
All right, so you give them the survey, and the survey is all about marketing, right? What kinds of marketing they use, what kinds of marketing they don't use, what kind of tools they use.
Yeah.
How many questions were on the survey that you sent them?
Yeah, there was about 30 question about marketing question, how you said.
Yeah.
And I was into I wanted to know how startups use low-cost marketing approach because I know that startups have to use every money wisely. You know, they don't have a lot of money for marketing budget.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So that was my point. You
No,
know,
that's
I
great.
was, I was thinking about that, and questions were focus on low-cost marketing approach.
Mm-hmm.
So about these stuff.
And now you've taken all that data and you're in the process of building this beautiful infographic that people will be seeing on the screen as we talk about this. So let's actually do this. I just want to kind of talk through this infographic, talk
Uh-huh.
through kind of the data that you learned and what you found out about American startups and how they market, because that's exactly what this show is all about, is how people are marketing in different ways using growth hacking, which is a lot of what this is. And
Mhm.
so the first stat you have on here is that 93% of the startups in your survey used low cost methods and only 7% used traditional marketing approaches. So first, how do you define traditional marketing approaches? What kinds of things would be traditional marketing that only 7% did?
Mhm. You know how I said marketing need to spend the money wisely. So traditional approach means, for example, you spend a lot of money for television or television commercial
Mm-hmm.
on or radio on billboards on something like this stuff. I would say old school marketing stuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And they can afford it, startups, because it costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So they must be much more wise and use really smarter tools, you know, like inbound and social media, you know, PR stuffs that don't cost so much money.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
that's the whole point. So 7% of and startups in the US know it and use it, and it was I accept it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It definitely shows a huge trend. I mean, no longer is it really acceptable to use money in old-fashioned ways.
Mhm.
93% are really, we're on the other side of the bell curve now.
It's really
It's
interesting
run
and
its
startups
course.
know it.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Mhm. It's really interesting and startups know it in the US.
Absolutely.
Use
And,
it.
and then you also have a stat on here that says 84% of the startups that you approached use the lean methodology.
Yeah.
I'm assuming those go hand in hand, lean methodology and low cost marketing. I mean, is that kind of what you get from the numbers there?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Maybe it can be joined because startups need to measure everything and measure ROI of their investments. You know, it's really joined with I would say lean method or lean methodology. It's quite interesting number two, and 84% use. Lean method. In the Czech Republic, I wouldn't say it would be the same number.
Oh, really? So what do you think it would be in the Czech Republic? What kind of number would be lean methodology there?
Yeah, I would say, and just I guess, it would be about 30% max. I would say.
30%?
Mm-hmm.
Really? So you feel like the lean methodology is very US centric right now. Do you think it will spread? Is there momentum in the Czech Republic with lean methodology? Or do you think it's just an American thing?
I think it's a great methodology. I will use it, or I use it in marketing too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that now in the Czech Republic, it's a buzzword or new buzzword, you know. So
Uh,
it's coming across people and they are thinking about it, you
Yeah,
know.
and that's actually a good kind of thing to think about as U.S. companies decide what markets they want to compete in. Because if they realize that there's certain countries who still don't have lean methodology in place, that if they have an offering in that country, they can get a lot of market share before other startups know how to build, measure, and learn efficiently enough to get their own market share. So it's just something to keep in mind that sometimes going global allows you to be ahead of other countries just because of where a methodology is at in your own country. And now the next part of this infographic, you kind of break down four kinds of marketing. And you have inbound marketing as the first one, then guerrilla marketing, then word of mouth marketing, and then viral marketing. And so let's start with the one that was most used by the
Mhm.
startups that you approached. The most used kind of marketing was inbound marketing, right? Which
Yeah.
isn't really surprising for me on this show because so many talented people come on this show and tell me they use inbound marketing. I've heard it enough that I believe it now. And in your survey, it says that 78% of the people you approach, they know about inbound marketing and they use inbound marketing.
Mhm.
Why do you think inbound marketing was so popular? Is it because it works really well with low cost and lean methods, or do you think
Mhm.
there's some other reason?
Yeah, I think inbound marketing is really buzzword or popular word. I think it seems that it will work because it's cheap, but I'm not sure if it's really cheap. Create great content costs a lot of money, but a lot of people think that inbound is free of charge, I would say. So,
That's true.
social media, Facebook, Twitter, so on and so on, blogs and so on. And this is stuff which is inbound marketing, basically. Create great content. So
Yeah.
startups can use it because it's free of charge for them. But you have to spend some money to that to create great content.
Hmm.
So it's not how it seems. So,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
startups
So
use
maybe so inbound being popular and low cost being popular may not go hand in hand because inbound does cost. I think you're absolutely right. Now, the most known of the four kinds of marketing was viral marketing, but it's just the most known. It's not the most used.
yes.
Do you think that's kind of it shows our obsession with viral marketing, even though we don't use it or even know how to use it sometimes?
Yeah. It's really interesting. Viral is absolutely buzzword. It's everywhere, and every startups want to create viral video, for example, because they it will approach a lot of people for small amount of money. So it's really important for them, or interesting for them to use. But it's interesting that just 4% don't know what's viral, but just 55% know and use viral. So
Yeah.
they know it's not so easy how it looks like to create a viral video.
Yeah.
Uh, so
And so, out of all the startups you talk to, and you talk to some very large name startups. I mean, let's be clear here. You talk to people like Airbnb.
yeah.
What were some of the other big ones you talked to?
Yeah, I was talking with Airbnb, but now I don't remember with who exactly.
Oh
No,
no, yeah, it's fine. What were some other companies that you talked to that were well known?
It was, for example, about me or some Czech startups which are in the US. For example, Social Bakers or Good Data. These startups are based in Czech, but they are in the whole world
Yeah.
and the US too. So
Yeah, so there's some big names on there, like About.me, Airbnb, and some of the other ones. Um, and so even with that kind of caliber of company, only 55% use viral marketing, but 78% use inbound marketing. So I do think that really tells us that viral marketing doesn't necessarily work for every startup, and
Mhm.
you may not know how to use it. Where inbound is more democratic, it's more ubiquitous. Inbound, a lot of different people can use. Viral, it is still more niche, and it may always be, I think. Now, you have two other kinds of marketing on here that were not the most used or the most known, which is word of mouth and guerrilla. Let's start with guerrilla. How do you define guerrilla marketing? What is that to you?
Yeah, guerrilla marketing don't have to be online. It can be offline too. It's something what is absolutely different from something interesting, and it doesn't cost so much money. You know,
Right.
it must be something crazy
Mm-hmm.
and something like this stuff.
All right, so this is really the out of box thinking that doesn't take a lot of money. Is that kind of the two
Yes, yes,
pieces that sum it up?
of course. Out of box thinking, absolutely guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, and 45% use this. So really, when it comes to viral and guerrilla, it's almost the same. About the same
Yeah.
amount use both of those.
Mhm.
Which is I don't know what that means, but we talk about viral all the time. We don't talk about guerrilla as much, but really they're both used kind of neck and neck there. And then the other kind is word of mouth marketing. So what's the difference between word of mouth marketing and viral marketing? How do you make that distinction?
Yeah, viral marketing is in online world, I would say. Yeah, and word of
Okay.
mouth is in offline world. Talking with people and so on. And it's interesting. in this area of startups that 71% know and use word of mouth marketing. And it's nice because startups work like communities and something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
they have many meetups and they talk about what they are doing, and so it's natural for startups. I would say word of mouth marketing.
Yeah,
And
this one was
it's free
really
of
high.
charge.
I mean, this one's at 71%, and the highest one of the four was inbound at 78%. So word of mouth and inbound are, the two dominant kind of leaders in terms of the categories of marketing
Yeah.
that people are using in your survey. And I think you make a really good point that there's an offline component to the startup world, and it's becoming more and more of an offline component. There's an actual community around the startup ecosystem now. And so if
Yeah.
your product appeals to startup people, there's actually groups meeting and talking, and they're sharing
Mhm.
your app and sharing your thing that you're making.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So you make a really good point. And then
Yes.
and the next part of your data here, it really talks about the tools that startups use. And I like this because it gives us a grasp of what tools are using a lot and which ones are not using much. So I just
Mhm.
want to kind of walk through these a little bit, and then we'll touch on a couple of them. By far, the most used tool was social media, 96%, which isn't really surprising. I mean, we expect all kind of companies to have some sort of social media presence.
Yeah.
Next on the list, 85% use email, and
Mhm.
so I think that makes sense because email is so powerful. But now we
Yes.
have the data saying, look, social media is number one, email is number two. I do think they should be hand in hand there. Number three surprised me. The third most used tool was public relations. And when
Mhm.
I think of PR, I always think of like larger companies or the ones that can hire a PR firm. But to think that, that's the third most used tool and
Mhm.
that startups are using it who are also primarily lean, I thought that was interesting. Next on the list at 60% of companies is pay per click, 48% sponsorships, and then it
Yeah.
starts to go down from there.
Yeah.
Display, roadshow, print, radio, and then at the very end, 5.4% use TV commercials. Out of all these, what surprised you about this data? Was there anything that you learned here that you kind of weren't expecting about what they use a lot?
I think it's what I expected from this part of my survey.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, it's free of charge. Emailing, it's really cheap too. And TV commercial, it's really
It's
expensive.
expensive, yeah.
Okay, it's not surprising me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, that's
No,
it.
that's good. No, it's just kind of cool to see it laid out like this, especially when we know the makeup that they are lean and they are using inbound and word of mouth, and then see what kind of tools they're using there. And then you also break down what the most popular social media sites they use are. And number one is Facebook at 94%, and number
Yeah.
two is Twitter at 90%. Did you expect Facebook to be larger than Twitter in terms of the social media they use?
I expected it. Yeah, but for example, in the Czech Republic, Facebook is really huge here,
Mm-hmm.
about 4 million people or users.
Mm-hmm.
But Twitter is really small and just for a few people, about 100,000.
Yeah.
It's really different from the US.
No,
I know that
that's good to
Facebook and
think
Twitter
about.
will be almost similar, and it seems like it is. But Facebook is the first place.
Yeah, no, totally. It's interesting. It's kind of an anecdote from Growth Hacker TV is that we put a lot of emphasis and effort into Twitter. I'm on
Uh-huh.
Twitter. I'm replying to people. I'm talking to people. We share our new episodes on Twitter. We have almost no really presence on Facebook. I think it's wise to, and we will eventually. But right now, it's just about resources. And yet, in our inbound leads, we get almost as many from Facebook as we do Twitter, even though I put no effort into it. So I think what you're saying actually is right, is that Facebook is far more dominant than we realize, and
Mhm.
I'm putting no effort into it, and it's still giving me almost the same number of visits. And so I think there's something there. I think I need to start putting more effort into Facebook and probably
Mhm.
less into Twitter,
Yeah.
even though that wasn't the assumption I had coming in. And your data kind of backs that up. And what you're saying about the numbers in the Czech Republic also back that up. It kind of builds the case even further in my mind there. And then
Yeah.
below that is LinkedIn. But to be clear, Facebook and Twitter are at 94% and 90%, and then LinkedIn's at 55%. So we have a drastic drop between the two
Oh,
main leaders, and then kind
oh,
of the rest of the pack. And then below LinkedIn is YouTube. So those are kind of the top four. But then number 5, which wouldn't have been true a couple of years ago, is Pinterest. And then you have blogging platforms. Number 7 there, which wouldn't have been true a couple of years ago, is Instagram. Then you have Tumblr and others and Foursquare, and then Vine with a really small 2.7%. So it just shows you kind of the changing landscape too. A couple years ago, Pinterest wouldn't have been on this list, Instagram wouldn't have been on this list, Vine wouldn't have been on this list, and yet now they make up more than a fourth, actually almost half combined, of all the social media use. And so that's quite astonishing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I can say interesting numbers about LinkedIn in the Czech Republic. We don't use usually LinkedIn for marketing in the Czech Republic. It's not so popular here for marketing.
Now, what is not so popular there?
Again, please.
What is it you're saying that's not popular?
Yeah, LinkedIn not so popular like Facebook or Twitter, I would say.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. This number is surprising for me that LinkedIn's 55% of startups use it for
okay. Oh, I see. You're saying LinkedIn is not that popular in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see, in the U.S., it seems like everybody's connected on LinkedIn. But of all their users, I'm sure the largest percentage is probably from the U.S. That'd be my assumption anyway. So yeah, it is very interesting how things change from country to country and the tools they use and the trends and the methodologies. Do you think after seeing this data that it's going to make you a better marketer? I mean, you're already skilled in that you can get a microsite to go viral, and you put it together in a way that really made people like you and like the site. But do you think this kind of data will help you in the future?
Yeah, of course. For example, Czech market will learn from this data and will think about LinkedIn. And now I'm thinking about LinkedIn more in my marketing practice. So I will use LinkedIn now because I think it can be important and it will be because it's really important in the US. So it comes to the Czech Republic too really soon. So
Well, let me ask you this: when you were in class and you did this, and the people, your professors, your classmates, they saw the kind of response you were getting online, and you were becoming a little mini celebrity. What were they saying when they saw that happen?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I was featured on some sites through Czech internet, and Twitter, and many new contacts and friends, and my friends, they didn't believe I can do that. I can approach it, but I did, and I'm quite popular because of it now in the marketplace because Czech Republic is small and marketers know each other here. So it's quite interesting for me, this project.
Yeah, totally.
It was fun for me, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that your example is actually maybe the best thing to learn from this interview. I mean, the data is cool and it backs up some of our assumptions. It changes some of our other assumptions. The data is great and the infographic is great, but I think your story is what's actually the reason you're on the show. If you just made this infographic, you wouldn't be on here. You're on here because you're a nobody from the Czech Republic. You decided to try something, use some, guerrilla marketing tactics in your own word there, and then it went viral. A lot of people saw it, and you actually got a lot of people helping you out. And it just goes to show that whatever kind of startup you're in, whatever kind of resources you have at your disposal, whatever country you find yourself in, if you can get creative enough, there is always a way to grow 100% of the time if you just get creative enough. And people don't realize that creativity is what unlocks everything. It's great to have money to throw at things. It's great to have a team. It's great to have a well-known brand name. But I would take creativity over those things any day of the week because with creativity, you can generate from thin air entire campaigns that some of the internet will take notice of. So Honza, that's actually why I think you're on this show, is because you tried a project like this and then it worked, which is even better. Well, so Honza, thank you so much for coming on Growth Hacker TV and sharing your story and also sharing your infographic with us.
Thank you. It was a nice experience and thank you for the invitation.